Hello everyone, welcome back to the United Stand, 4 p.m. Adam Talks. You know what that means. I've got a guest alongside me today, the poet, the author, or is he just a Northwest Manchester correspondent for The Guardian, The Observer? It is Mr. Jamie Jackson. Welcome to the show, your first appearance ever on the United Stand, Jamie. Absolute pleasure having you on. How are you doing, my friend?
I've never been better, thank you, and massively kind of you to ask me on. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. We've got loads to get through. Manchester United going to sign Kylian Mbappe? That news has just broke. I don't think so personally, but we'll talk about it with you guys in the chat. Get your comments in as well. If you've got any questions for Jamie or myself, get them flooding in there. We've already got loads of people in there already. Takeover talk, transfers, what's happening, where are we up to? We're bringing it all to you with Jamie today. So settle in for the next hour. We're going to get through as much as possible. First of all, Jamie, as colourful as always. Season's over.
Yes.
But it doesn't feel like it don't feel like it's over for United, especially not United fans. We've got to go straight in on the jugular. You was one tweeting about it not so long ago. It's game time. It's do or die time. The takeover, the bids, where we're up to. Are we expecting anything soon?
Yeah, do or die time's an interesting phrase because it's supposedly been like that since, I don't know. 7 months, mate.
Yeah,
March was probably the deadline, May, April, end of season. What are we now? Middle of June? We are middle of June now. So, listen, I still think it's got a little way to go. I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but I still wouldn't be surprised if the club has not been bought or this has not been resolved before the start of the season, which is the 12th of August. I know that is very bad sort of news if you're a United fan. And Ten Hag, who, as I understand it, is getting a little bit frustrated, and I'm being polite about the way he's feeling. Do you know what I mean? Underplaying, because from his point of view, this is his worst nightmare really, because he's having to manage not only the squad and being Manchester United manager, but sort of above him, this whole thing, with regard to budgets, players. It's so difficult anyway, the transfer market. I mean, it is an absolute. Never mind reporting on it, actually trying to operate in it as a sort of, even a manager of a massive club like United is very difficult for so many different reasons. So, as I understood it last time I checked, which was yesterday, neither Sir Jim Ratcliffe or the Sheikh had any more sort of clarity. Now, I am told certain things as a reporter, and there's always stuff going on in the background. Don't get me wrong; it's not like I know absolutely everything. I would never sort of say that. I'm just, just reporting what I'm told by sort of the two camps. But if they're saying that to me, there's going to be some truth in it, because they don't want to upset someone like me by feeding me a line and then, it not being correct, because that's counterproductive. So, it's still a little bit how long's a piece of string, I'm afraid. What my constant view, based on sort of experience, but also the sort of facts I do know, is that I still would be surprised if it's not the Sheikh. I'd be very, very surprised. Apart from anything else, because what's behind him buying this? Obviously, he wants to buy Manchester United because apparently he is a fan. But, why did Qatar want the World Cup? Similar reason. Why does he want Manchester United? It's about the image of the country, about the image of himself, and they don't like to lose face. No one does, really, in any culture, don't get me wrong. Now, Sir Jim will have similar sort of reasons, but the fact that he wants to buy the club 100% and Sir Jim doesn't says to me that, not that he's more serious, but he's got more money, obviously, and he could say, I'll just try and buy 10% more than Sir Jim, but he's not doing that. He's going to have a dedicated fund, from what I'm told, for sort of transfers. They're going to wipe out the debt. So, I think it will be him. I'm not saying this will happen. It could be tomorrow, but I don't think so. But hopefully, the transfer window actually opens tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's not great.
Could that be the perfect time to announce it? Could that be the way it goes? I mean, what makes you think personally, Jamie, that it is going to be the Qatar bid and Sheikh Jassim? What gives you that sort of feeling?
Yeah, it's kind of what I just said, really. I don't think
because he's a fan and he's just the money's
well, and also because of the cultural thing about sort of,
we don't.
Abu Dhabi or Manchester City. There's sort of competition in that region of the world for sort of, I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but sort of to show the best face of their respective countries or lands. As I say, that's why Saudi Arabia may well go for a World Cup. As an example of kind of what I'm talking about, after Qatar had theirs. One thing that's slightly interesting about this is we've been told all along that he doesn't want to overpay Sheikh Jassim, which is fair enough. But I do have a view that if they are $500 million short, for example, I'll give you an example, why not just do it and blow Sir Jim out of the water? Now, that may happen. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking at now is this jockeying. But again, I said Ten Hag is frustrated about all this. I know for a fact that, you know, the Sheikh is, you know, the sort of his camp, his advisors, because they can't quite understand why it's going on, you know, sort of so long. The one thing that I think's in favour of Sir Jim Ratcliffe is this idea, this plan that maybe one or two of the dreaded Glazers to United fans will stay on as sort of, you know, minority owners. Now, I would say to fans, I understand completely why you don't want any of the family to remain. I get that, but I would also say that if they are just there as minority shareholders, then it's kind of immaterial with regard to all the things you've been so upset about. You know, not really caring about the club in essence. Yeah. You know, that will go away if they're, you know. So I don't think Sir Jim would be a bad owner at all. You know, I quite like the idea of a local business person sort of owning Manchester United. I don't really have a firm view on who I would prefer. So I think either way, hopefully, will be better than what you've had sort of since 2005, which has been very difficult. What I always say is, United is such a massive club, and you had Ferguson obviously to 2013, but you've managed to win all the things you did despite having these owners. That shows how powerful you are, because, you know, you don't need me to say it really, but imagine how much more you would have won money if they hadn't been around.
Exactly that. I mean, the obvious links with Qatari is the PSG. If their owner has completely quashed that this week of having any involvement. He was questioned on his on that. Well, obviously, news has come out regarding Kylian Mbappe over the last couple of days, and links obviously from that. I mean, his situation is one I just don't understand, and his role at PSG and what power he's got. That's just one that I don't see United ever sort of going down the road of. But the rumours coming out that this has been planned since February. Can we quash that as a non-story that Kylian Mbappe is going to United? He's interested by the project. That's just come out now, actually. Yeah,
I'd be staggered, not because he shouldn't be interested in Manchester United. You know, it's a great football club, obviously, but I just feel that, I mean, you mentioned the PSG thing there, you know, whatever his kind of role is there, having some sort of say. I'm not completely sure if that's true, but I don't really think that's the sort of thing Ten Hag would necessarily allow.
That's what I thought.
But, you know, he's a phenomenal player. You know, I just wonder about the whole package, what he would be paid, or what he would demand being paid. Now, they paid Ronaldo, obviously, I think the best part of $500 million a week. Sorry, $500,000 a week. So, you know, you could say, well, he'd want maybe something probably more than that. There'd be commercial rights. I just don't see it. I mean, it'd be amazing, you know. And if Ten Hag could make it work, or United could make it work, great. But I think, see, one other thing just to sort of clear up is, let's say it is Sheikh Jassim who buys the club, right? He's got all that money, apparently personal wealth. His dad owns Harrods, as I understand it. It's not even like a massive part of his portfolio. That's the sort of money we're talking about. But the only extra money that United would have this summer, let's say it's bought tomorrow, the only extra money, as I understand it, they would have is, because of FFP, would be that the interest payments on the debt, that if the debt's quashed, so you'd get that. I don't know, it's not that much, about 20, 30, 40 million. Obviously, the dividends that the Glazers pay themselves, so let's say it's an extra 60. It's not like, as I understand it, I'm not sure he could come in because of FFP, say, right, here you go, whatever you want for Kylian Mbappe or Harry Kane, you know, and 2 or 3 other massive, because of the rules. I've had that on quite good authority from the club, to be honest. So, you know, that's, you know, I'm not too sure how many people are aware of that. I wasn't until I started just having a little look at it. So this idea that, it's a bit like if you look at Newcastle, they haven't been able to do that. But Newcastle's actually quite a good model with regard to what they've done, because they've got a very good manager in there, like you have, and he's improved players, Eddie Howe, and they've just got sort of gradually building, aren't they? Yeah. And with United having more money, you know, I still think a new owner, wipe the debt, feel-good factor, the way you had this season just gone, you've got you know, amazing manager. I would be optimistic, but you have to have this sorted out, this ownership thing. It is a nightmare. You know, the reason why Manchester City are so good is because of the hierarchy, because of how it's structured. You know, it's so well run. It's a business, and they run it so well.
That's it. I mean, we have spent close to the same amount of money as City have over the last 10 years, but we've wasted it, and people have been left in position. I think it's the argument with a lot of United fans. It's like, the Glazers, they've put their hand in the pocket, but they've kept people in power who are just making them more money. Yeah,
and also, Adam, it is down to the Glazers. It's not the money spent, but it's the fact that, you know, you had Ed Woodward there as the chief executive, who isn't as good as Richard Arnold. You know, he then employs managers who work. You know what I mean? It always starts at the owners, because the owners are the ones who employ the executives who employ the manager, and you've got to, you know what I mean? It's top down. So I see it a lot on Twitter. Oh, what are United fans are entitled? You know, you spent all this money, stop moaning. Yeah, but it's how it was spent, as you just said. That is the key to it. You shouldn't really have to make the point. It's common sense. But if you don't have slick business people running your club, forget about the rest. And that's why, as I said earlier, United have done really well to win the odd cup. I know you want to win leagues, I get all that, because you're doing it in almost having to fight your own club in a way. You know what I mean? The way it's run up here. So that's why new ownership, hopefully, would sort a lot these issues out.
That is it, exactly. I mean, it all comes down to how the fans look at it, because we haven't got to say with anything that goes on. All we're looking at is, like you said at the start, Jamie, it's going to disrupt Ten Hag's pre-season. We're talking about fixtures coming out Thursday, the window opening.
Yeah. People like me asking questions, is it bothering you?
Yeah, and it's like, at the end of the day, you look at it and you go, well, yeah, fair enough, these things may drag on, it's powers that are beyond us. But as fans, we look at it and go, well, how much can we spend? You just shed some light on that Jamie, in terms of the new laws that are coming in. But I heard something the other day, which just get your opinion on, actually. It's like the COVID effect, how when the pre-season under COVID, teams weren't spending as much, players were on low contracts, short-term contracts, they're all running out right now. Yeah. The new financial fair play rules and possibly a cap on agents' fees as well coming in October of this year. So could this be the summer where the agents just go, let's just sell as many as we can, let's just make as much money as we can now, because that cap is going to kick in and we're not going to get what we did back in the day.
Great point. It's a little bit like what Chelsea did, spending whatever it was in January, and these sort of 7 or 8 year contracts to get ahead of these new FFP rules.
That's the only way to manage
so it may well happen. I mean, the sort of the transfer market is a bit of a sort of horse trading arena, in that it's just so sort of like, it's absolutely crazy, some of the stuff that even me, who's not party to everything, but gets a little bit of a sense. You're like, wow, that's happened. There's so much stuff you can't report in this job for whatever reasons, but has happened, or you've been told has happened. So into that sort of boiling pot, if you like, what you're just saying then, I mean, let's wait and see. I mean, United generally, it was a record last summer, because of when Casemiro came in, I think he spent 220, 230. But they generally spend, if you look at historically since Ferguson left, for example, it's minimum 150. They might have had the odd summer where it's been slightly, but it's that sort of region, getting up towards 200. So if you look at that, and this is just an opinion, not based on any fact. I'd be surprised now if you got Harry Kane, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. Actually. I think that's off. I was going to get your opinion on
that. Well, I mean, I hear different things about it, but it's a Levy thing. So so what I was going to go on to say is, I'm not too sure how many other Harry Kane equivalent centre forwards are either available or you can get. You know what I mean? So what so let's say that was going to be 100 million for that player. It might now be sort of 60 or 70 for a centre forward. That frees up a bit of money from that little budget. But Mason Mount, I don't know. I mean, apparently they're asking for 80, 90. Chelsea. United want to pay 50-ish, maybe with some add-ons. But I would say you obviously need a striker, central midfielder and a centre-back. I mean, you could go, and also you need a goalkeeper. Sorry to say for David De Gea fans out there, but in my opinion, I've watched, as you have obviously, I've watched De Gea for the last 10, 11 years up close. So he's a very good shot stopper. He's just not good enough in the air, and he makes too many mistakes. Not a great attributes for a keeper.
That's it, because I was in the post-match press conference after the final.
Oh, yeah, Wembley.
You grilled Ten Hag. We were trying to move on to another question, but you kept coming back with second questions. And third, you wanted a definite answer out of, like, how much can you put down to individual error and how much it's costing
for me, both those goals in the cup final, if not, he could. The first one, right, maybe he couldn't have got to it, but he should have at least dived. The volley, the Gundogan volley. And the second one, I'm sorry, it bounces twice. I don't care how unsighted you are. I mean, he's a top-class goalkeeper. And if it was the only time, it'd be unfortunate, and it'd still be his fault. But okay, but he's got a track record of mistakes that have cost you. I mean, you went out of Europe basically because of David De Gea this season. I mean, I could go on. And so that's why I asked Eric about it, and I can't remember exactly what his first response was. I think he said something like, "I've just answered it over there," but I sort of went back and said, "Well, I can't remember exactly, but I was obviously expecting him to stick up for him the first time, but it's often the second question, with a manager or a player that maybe you get something out of them. But it is just an issue that he has to protect him. I get it, because A, that's a good thing to do in public, but B, at the moment he is the number one. But was a debate on radio yesterday about Jordan Pickford, actually. You know, would United take him? If you ask me, yes, because I think the price of him would be competition at the very least for De Gea. You know, let's see what happens then. But anyway, so to go back to what I was saying, you need 3 or 4 players. I think you need 5 blockbuster players, and then you know you're not going to get this summer, by the way. But you know that's how short you are. But so that's what the whole thing about building it up. Do you know what I mean? Like I was saying about Newcastle, and you know he had a great summer last summer at Ten Hag, easily the best of any manager since Ferguson left. I mean, it's a pretty low bar. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
But you know what I mean. But yeah, for me as a reporter, you get to this stage of the season on United, you say maybe this summer, maybe this summer, maybe this summer. So I imagine for fans, you know, you're a patient bunch.
Well, thanks for recognising that, Jamie. Anyway, but yeah, that's what we're going to get if Sheikh Jassim comes in. Obviously, you've broke down financial fair play there. I think it's important that everyone does understand that and where the budget is. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes in, it may be even worse. I mean, you talked about the Glazer still being in. There's been a video on there's been a video doing the rounds regarding the breakdown of the shares. How if Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in with his 50%, if you could just explain a little bit to people watching how they would still have more power even though they've got less percent just by the Class B and A shares and what that means.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't completely understand. Well, I understand his model of prospective ownership, Sir Jim's. The Glazers between them own, I think, just shy of 70%. And the siblings, there's 6 brothers, well, I think it's 5 brothers, 1 sister. It's varying, you know, 15, 16. And I think it is Joel and Avram who have the most. And I think the idea is that he buys 50, maybe 55. Those 2 maybe retain, if not all of that share, but, you know, most of it. The A and B shares, the last time I looked at it, it was something to do with they could sell. I mean, that doesn't sound a very good deal to me. They could sell them off. I can't remember which one it is, but one of them has less voting or maybe 0 voting or any sort of.
Yeah, the A shares have less voting rights. So they would transfer from an A to a B share. It's complicated, but it works out that they would then. There's a clause in their structure.
But I remember when they did this, when they sold it, you know, these sort of different type of shares, people were buying them. And I was just like, why? I mean, obviously, if you're a fan of United, that's you know, that's great. It's not my business. But what I meant was, with regard to the Glazers, how much sort of dislike there is. Why would you sort of
go
a little bit? I mean, it is all very complicated. You know, someone said to me the other day, why can't United have owners like the Wrexham people? You know, the sort of, you know, who seem sort of out for the right reasons, you know, so far, and just, you know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because
from the bottom,
how many billionaires do you know who could buy United? There's lots of billionaires in the world, but you know, it's difficult to get.
The richest man in Great Britain is struggling to buy United outright, so that says everything.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
That's where we're at, isn't it? It's like the Glazers are Champions League. They are like the Manchester City of the football business world. They are top dogs, and what they've done and how they've managed to make so much money out of Manchester United without spending a bean is nothing short of. Well, he's sending jealousy vibes right through the football financing world, I'm sure. But they have still got their claws in. This only happens though if Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes in. This is only a conversation if Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes in. And obviously everyone's looking at that now being the reason why the club want to push towards the Qatar bid.
Well, I think the Glazers just want the most money. So whether, or the, you know, obviously the most money or the best deal. For them, so I don't think
for Avram and Joel, basically, because the others, by the sounds of it, just want out.
If I could just explain, when you know, through the sort of Glazer siblings' ownership, whenever there's a big deal meeting and they're all there, they might be discussing, shall we sign Paul Pogba, for example? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's where it goes. As I understand it, I'm told they'll obviously be there, but they'll have like a lawyer with them or an advisor because they've all got their own interests with it. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons why. I mean, there's many reasons, but you know, anything by committee is difficult. You know, we have a few people sort of having to agree. But if you then factor in, there's a lot of money at stake, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is sort of, you know, again, this is another reason why it's a very sort of cumbersome ownership model for you. Never mind the fact that they've been taking all this money out, and basically the debt now is kind of, as I understand it, basically double what it was in the first place. I mean, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because I can't quite believe it. That, you know, as you sort of inferring that. I mean, it was legal at the time. I'm not too sure if you can buy this way now.
No, I don't think you can now.
So, you know, this is kind of where it's at, and that's why selling it is so difficult, because you've got 6 different, you know, points of view or needs or demands, or, you know, this is what, you know, I'm talking about 6 siblings. So that, you know, I like to think that, I mean, you know, that you get over this, you will, you know, get a new owner, and you look back maybe in 10 years' time with a few Premier League titles under your belt and think, you know, I'm glad we got through that. I think you will, but it's just, it must be very frustrating, because you know, I still would be surprised if, or I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, as I said earlier, if it was sold before the 12th of August. It's not that far away now, to be honest. It's only 2 months.
Not at all, not at all. Another one we need to just quash completely, because I said it when the news came in about the take it or leave it offer from the Qataris, the 5th bid, and you came out and said, I thought initially that's a bluff. There's no way that these guys could have, like what you said, them just not taking no for an answer, and they get what they want usually. They're not just going to walk away from this.
Well, listen, again, you know, that was the information that the ball's now in the Glazers' court. You know, there's no more sort of engagement. The sort of characterization of it was on that Friday. Was it maybe last Friday? I lost track of time. Was, you know, after this is no more engagement. But I just don't believe, as you're basically saying, that that's the case, because we've had deadlines that have been extended previously. We've had this, we've had that. But that was a sign of, you know, how sort of cheesed off basically that Sheikh Jassim's camp has become. Yeah, from the outset, I always thought 6 billion was kind of, you know, well.
That was like the figure. I mean, it already is a world record bid for a sports.
Yeah, it was the Washington NFL team, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is already more. It's way more than that. The bid that's in now from the Qataris is way above the value of the share price right now. I know there's been a spike recently because the Glazers are just playing ball, and this is a game they know well in terms of the stock exchange and stuff, but it's still more than what the club is valued by Forbes and everything like that. It's like every United fan's looking at this now going, like, why? Why are you not accepting it? And you just...
I'll tell you why, because they think they can get more. I mean, you know, people can guess who this was, but, you know, like basically one of the highest ranking executives at the club once told me that, and this is going back, you know, I don't know, pre-pandemic 5 years ago, something, that easily United could one day be valued at double figures billion, so 10, you know, 12. So if I'm being told that by an executive who works for the Glazers, they obviously know that, they're business people, so that's what they'll be, I don't know this for sure, but, you know, they will be saying, look, you know, you're getting a bargain here, relatively, you know, with what you're saying you're going to do, you know, in 30-year plans, this is the Sheikh, the infrastructure, you know, the whole thing, you know, before you know it, it's going to be, you make your money back and treble it. And if that conversation is not, you know, going on, is not part of the sort of, you know, reign negotiation or the Glazers, if they're speaking directly, I'd be absolutely staggered, because, as I say, that's what I was told. At the time, I remember looking it up. I think United at the time were valued about 2.5, 3. So that'll put some sort of date on it. I can't remember exactly what it was. So, you know, that's you say greed, and I agree, but they are business people, and whether you or I like it or not, that's kind of what their life is. That's what they do. They just make, you know, they're out to make money, which is, you know, that's their choice. So, you know, that's why you sort of go around in circles with it a little bit.
That conversation will be happening then, like you said. Then that was what I was going to ask next. It's like the Qataris will know this, Sheikh Jassim will know this, and it's like, we ain't walking away. There's no way that they're going to go this far into the process and then go, right, that's the last bid, we're gone. If you don't take it, if you don't accept it by Friday, lo and behold, we're nearly another week on now, and they're still in with the shout.
I looked it up, right, and I think the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is sort of of Qatar, which is sort of like the money that they have to sort of invest in things, it's close to about 400 billion. That's quite a lot of money, right?
Chump change,
you know what I mean? It's not what I find on the back of my sofa on a Saturday night when I want a curry. But so what I'm trying to say is, for an extra 5 billion, it sounds ridiculous to say it, or sorry, an extra $500 million, or whatever is the shortfall in the end, it is kind of just, as I understand it, you know, not that difficult for someone like Sheikh Jassim, if he's got the money, which we're told he has, and, you know, you can look into his family a little bit, and it's you know, his family does seem to be very, very rich, you know. But again, it's part of their sort of, or his sort of approach that, you know, why should I be ripped off? Which is fair enough. No one wants to be ripped off. You know, I don't know about you, but it's all right paying for something, of course, but you don't want to feel like you've been taking the mick out of.
You've had over, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
That goes in every aspect of life, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
It's what it is. So, yeah, no, totally understand that. But And I think it's just, I think everyone knows it. I mean, we see the headlines and like, you're giving information, it gets reported. We read the headlines. Half the time it's like, there's got to be more to it. I mean, no one's going to go, for this amount of money, no one's just going to disappear. So the Qataris are well and truly...
Unless he was never serious in the first place, you know what I mean? Unless it's all a big PR stuff, which I don't believe. But that was the only thing. Many years ago, I reported on Portsmouth when that went sort of... And they had and they had an owner there who, I'm not completely sure of this, but he was a gentleman from this region. I can't remember which country, but in the end, it seemed like he never existed. Like this person, I can't remember the gentleman's name. And I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but I'm saying that'd be the only reason I would suggest.
Don't scare everyone.
No. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, you know, I can't think of any reason why Sheikh Jassim would walk away, as you're saying, unless it's all a complete sort of farce. But, you know, as I say, I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah, no, it is real deal. It is, like I said, it's a world record. This isn't going to take, it's not going to last a week. I mean, 7 months since it was announced is quite a long time. And it is sort of dragging its heels a bit now. It does feel like we are very, very close to the end game, though. Like you've said, it feels like something is going to be announced. I think the problem we've got is it's like, if Sheikh Jassim's bid goes through, Jamie, how long then? Due diligence? Does things have to be checked? When can that money be made available? And in terms of what you said then, financial fair play is hampering Manchester United this summer anyway. Well, can they still invest in the infrastructure? Is that part of the accounting? Is that books?
Very good question. Very good question. You know, the information is that's been reported. Everyone knows that there will be a separate sort of fund for.
It's that fund, isn't it, and where that goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is what's interesting about it. I mean, I imagine. You know, well, so obviously that Old Trafford's just behind here, isn't it? There are 2 or 3. Let's say the Glazers don't go anywhere, right? They were looking at 2 or 3 plans with regard to there, right? One was you just sort of revamp the current site, you know, the current stadium. 2 was you pull it down completely, right? And then you build a completely new one, right? And 3, which I think they were looking at, was you sort of downscale Old Trafford, the stadium as it is now, and you make it for the women's and the academy teams, and then you build another. You know, whatever it is, 100, you could probably get 100,000 there, couldn't you, every home game? But you know what I mean? Next to it, and you make it a destination place, you have like restaurants.
Campus,
exactly, and you have it all on one site. Now, you tell me, but there's a whole issue with the railway track here, right?
Yeah,
so you can't build over it and all the rest of it. But you're looking at that, and then if you were going to revamp the Carrington, 2 billion? You know what I mean? And so this is, you know, if he comes in and this is what he's saying he's going to do, he's going to be there for 20, 30 years, however long, you know, it is a proper, not a reset because it's Manchester United, but you know what I mean? It's like Manchester United 2.0 or 3.0, you know, it's like the next epoch or phase of your club. Be very exciting. But to answer your question, I'm not too sure with regard to due diligence how long that takes, but I think, you know, if you're a fan, if you know he's bought the club, that'll do you for the time being, right? You know what I mean? You'll be happy with that because you've got rid of... You know who, and you know it's going to be optimistic.
There's a future, basically. That's it. It's like there's prospects there looking ahead. I think a lot of United fans would just take the Glazers gone right now, and the club being self-sufficient. That's what we've always wanted.
Well, and you are kind of self-sufficient now, aren't you? Despite the sort of debt, you know what I mean. So all that money is freed up, but all that sort of like it's a bit of a divide and rule thing in a way because you get, you know, fans get almost pitted against each other because of the way the Glazers kind of let it sort of, you know what I mean? And that's a shame because, you know, you're obviously all one club.
That does happen a lot.
You know what I mean? And that's sort of, I would say that is a bit of a product or a symptom of this ownership model, which, you know, it's all done a little bit sort of, the stadium's not really looked after properly. You know, you got a Carrington and the building some sort of new stuff there, but it's sort of almost like prefab. You know, that needs completely redoing basically, you know, you know, but you know, you have got here a massive footprint. You've got like a massive, you know, the potential for it. And this is again why, you know, these 2 people or entities want to buy the club. The potential for United is frightening actually. If you think about it, if you get the right owner in, it is pretty.
It is very, very scary. It's like I think every single football team of European, worldwide right now are praying that this doesn't go through because United would be a totally different animal.
You show me another football club in the world that is as self-sufficient as United. You know what I mean? Like.
No one's got the brand reach, the fan base.
Exactly. The money that you make, whatever you want to call it, it's just absolutely, it's bigger in that regard. It's far bigger than Real Madrid. We've got loads of debt and all that. And Barcelona, we all know about. You know what I mean? You name the club, it just doesn't exist really. And that's, as I say, despite what's gone on since 2005, you still, obviously Ferguson is a massive factor in that with all the titles. But you've got the history, blah blah blah. You don't need me to say it all. But so that's why, what I was sort of saying earlier. I think. Hopefully for your club, in time, this will be looked upon as a very sort of not great era, but a blip in the whole overall, history.
Yeah. I mean, looking ahead, obviously, ownership aside, we still got to buy players. Transfer rumours. We talked about Kane briefly. We'll move on from that because it doesn't look like Kane is going to happen at all right now. Kim Min-jae, another one, a defender. You said 4 or 5 class players. Reports are that Kim Min-jae's release clause. Only for 2 weeks, a rare one, weird one, how it runs from the 1st of
July. That's football for you, that's what I'm talking about, the horse trading.
To the 14th. Is this a case, and we've heard this phrase come out a number of times while this whole bidding process for the club has gone on, that it's business as usual.
Yes.
42 million buyout clause. There must still be a business plan in place for the summer spending, no matter who is in charge. Kim Min-jae looks like he could be top of that list.
So we're talking about earlier about Mason Mount and the money may be freed up if you don't go for Kane. Harry Maguire is a player who...
Is he going, Jamie? Fans want to know. You've got to answer that question. Is he going?
Unless he digs his heels in, yes. I mean, I happened to get some information before the World Cup saying that you're planning then, to sell him this summer, and it was, Fred might have been part of, the many others who were going. But it's what money... So what I'm trying to say is this summer... A lot of money needs to be generated by sales. If you go through that squad, who you could sell, you'd want to sell if you're Ten Hag, you're looking at, I don't know. I'd be interested to know what people think about what would be a realistic price for Maguire. 35? I don't know. 40? Is that underselling? Because he's in England. I don't know, but you understand what I'm getting at, right?
Yes.
Then it'd be one up. So if he goes, Lindelof stays, and then Fred and McTominay, I think at the moment it's more likely McTominay. I think Fred's really impressed him towards the end of the season. What do you get from McTominay? I'm not sure, actually. It's a really interesting question. So, but maybe with those two players as a starting point for sales, you're looking at about, I don't know, am I being generous here? I don't know, 80 million total, 70 million. So yeah, he definitely wants another centre back. It may well be the player you mentioned. Mason Mount's an interesting one for me because I never realised, I never thought he was like a sort of
Ten Hag style player.
Well, more is he a central midfielder or is he a number 10? I mean, I suppose it's the same thing as Eriksen. He could play sort of both very well. I mean, I'd suggest Eriksen's a better player, or he certainly was at his very peak. So I mean, I think Mount to me looks like, a sort of a very good squad player, and maybe with Ten Hag's coaching becomes, I don't know. I don't think he's as bad as some people think. He's played for England. He set up the winner in the Champions League finals. He's got that big game experience, and he knows himself he can do it. But it's, a striker. What's the gentleman called at Atalanta? I think it might be him actually.
Højlund.
Yes. Yeah.
Højlund, sorry.
Yeah. So again, he's sort of like.
He's already come out and said Manchester United is like pinnacle. It is one of the top. If you get to a decent level, and you want to get to the highest level, then Manchester United would be that.
But you see, this is what frustrates me about United under this ownership. I get the whole, Levy's digging his heels in, and I suppose if he doesn't want to sell, but if you get Harry Kane, right, at United, wow, suddenly it's like, because you've got 30 goals in a team that bombed this year. That's how good he is, you know what I mean? I remember once doing an England presser at St George's and just watching him warm up, and honestly, it sounds a bit silly because it's just a warm up, but he was just, people were banging balls at him, absolutely rapid. He was just controlling it so sort of easily, make it look so easy. I just thought that is the difference. It's just that sort of that touch and that class. So to go back, if you get Kane, if you've got real ambition here, you say, well, what will Levy be unable to turn down? If you get him in, I just think it changes the picture. But again, it's always a little bit sort of, not quite what's going to, So yeah, I think you're going to get a centre back, a striker, Mount as a midfielder probably, and then I don't know. Is that going to be it? I'm not too sure.
Well, that's it, Kim and Jay. I mean, the questions come in there. You're being compared to the man Vidic. I don't know if you've had that one before.
I have actually, yeah.
Well, everyone in the comments is going in.
A better player.
on the Vidic side of it. But there's one question in from the member that says, "Hi Adam, can you ask the manager who he has us to sign this summer?" In terms of the rumours, most likely for you, you just said then you expect Mount, possibly Kim and Jay, the centre back. Yeah. Are any of these players that we're buying subject to, like we just said then, someone leaving? Does Scott McTominay have to leave from midfield to come in, Maguire to go?
It's a good question. You've got basically about maybe say 150 cash here. But remember, you sort of broke the bank a little bit by getting Casemiro. That was an extra sort of because of what happened. And Anthony at one point, they weren't going to pay more than 60, and then it ended up being 100. So they're having to claw back money there. So I think you've got 150 with some sales. So yeah, I think you can't get all the positions or players that we're talking about without any sales. There's no way. And that's what I'm saying about Maguire and McTominay. And then I'm not too sure who else there is you get kind of half serious money.
Ferguson. That one's been rumoured because that would be, in terms of financial fair play, a homegrown talent,
sure.
100% profit, wouldn't it? So
it would, yes.
You could get 30 to 40 Henderson.
Okay,
that would go a long way.
So we were looking then at about 100 million, aren't we, with those three players minimum? I would say 120. If you then add that, factor that into what I'm saying, 150, 100 at minimum. That's £250,000 there. Again,
quarter of a billion.
Yeah, sorry. So so it does depend on sales. I think this is. In my time doing this job, sort of 11 years, I think this is the biggest summer in which you've needed to really sell to sort of generate, because of what you were talking about before, the COVID lag, the money that was sort of lost there, what happened last summer, with getting in, Casemiro and
that was all put on the company credit card, effectively, wasn't it? The revolving credit facility, which is like the unknown, which everyone has added to the overall debt because, like I said, it's not your money, so you still owe it to someone, don't you? So... Yeah. It's like, how much has that been paid off? How much of that is available for this summer? And then does that fit in with financial fair play again? It's like you said before, just going back to it, was like even no matter who the owner coming in, no matter how much debt is cleared, you still got to abide by financial fair play. And this is one thing United have never done well, whereas Chelsea have done it well. Yeah. City have sold very well and got good money for players. United, for some reason, and that goes to that structure that you talked about, Jamie, just isn't there.
Yeah, because they don't sell well because they haven't recruited well in the first place, players who you could then sell later. So, quick example, City buy a Kanji for 17 million. The Swiss defender, I think it was at Dortmund, was it? He comes in, kind of, as a squad player, obviously a very good player, but he's now a proper member of that team, playing the Champions League. Aki was going to leave last summer, City. He starts the Champions League final. It's proper, if you sold those two, if they were to sell those two players now, I don't know, it'd be a lot of money because of what. So it's all that. This is why every position, they always talk at United about pursuit of excellence, but that's fair enough if you've got people who are able to do that in all the important, it's just the management of the club is, I don't mean the team, the club, it's just sort of, it's just a bit middling, and I'm being polite.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for whoever comes in. He's got a lot to deal with, but the issue with, and it's a big one, how they handle this football, how they handle it, the football club in general. It's like the Mason Greenwood situation right now because everything has been dropped and there has to be some big PR spins. A lot of rumours going around that Mason Greenwood could well be wearing a United shirt again going around at the moment.
Well, again, this is just an opinion. I wonder whether that'll be left to the new owner to decide.
I reckon they could do that. I reckon the club would just say, your issue
now. If you're buying the club, you're buying everything, aren't you? You're buying everything, aren't you? Including, he's registered it in terms of the sort of, if you want to break it down to business, he's a registered asset, right? At the moment, he's an asset who's owned. So, don't get me wrong. If this sale is still going in 10 years' time, obviously Greenwood will be too old to play for United. I think, you know what I'm trying to say. So, I think there's a finite time for that because, if the season starts and it's not been sold, the club, and Greenwood is still there as an issue. I mean, I hear different things. Again, I did a story on this, in which basically was a sort of split. The football side felt there was a duty, the actual football coaches, whatever, felt there was a duty of care to a player who'd been there since he was 7 or 8. Hadn't been found guilty or anything. But then you've got all the other issues. There's a women's football team there. I'm not saying he's guilty. It has been proved of nothing at all. But there's a recording out there. The sponsors, again, whether you like it or not, that's a fact of business that sponsors are looking at saying, well, wait a minute, do we want to be associated with, a sort of club with this sort of situation has happened? So it is difficult to see. And I think, again, I've never been told this, but I think if you are United, listen, the big boys and they're adults, but it's like for them, this is like very difficult. There's some good people there. Let's take not say Glazers are bad people, but let's take them out of the sort of the running of the club, the sort of day-to-day stuff. There's a lot of good people there, and they're looking at this thinking, oh my God, this is not great. Whichever way you slice it. Ten Hag will have a say in it, but it won't be his casting vote or anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's right because he is the manager, but he's not. He's not. He's not in charge of the sort of everything we talk about, the business and all that. But that, if he was to stay, big if, suddenly you've got a centre forward there, right? You know what I mean? Who you didn't have before. I don't know. It's a very difficult one.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we know we've sat there in press conferences. Ten Hag, whether it's fair or not, does have to answer a lot of the questions that he has got nothing to deal with, nothing to do with.
Yeah,
sure. He is the face of the football club, and ultimately he's the one that has to answer the tough questions.
Exactly. This is what I said before about managing up. So this is another thing where he's sort of having to manage up, sort of deal with this issue that he walked into it, and the same with the ownership thing. It's nothing. He's just he's obviously an employee, but he's the public face. He's having to deal with all this stuff, and it's difficult for him because he's a human being. There's bound to be some days where he goes in there and he's frustrated for whatever reason to do with the ownership, and he's unable to sort of say whether we can get a player. And it's very difficult, I would imagine, to always sit there and say, oh, it's nothing. But sometimes, and he did actually a couple of times. He's shown, a bit of frustration in press conferences. There was the one after the Liverpool defeat? I think you might have been there. It was a Europa League one. Press conference.
Marcus Rashford.
I think he got asked about, the ownership, would you like it resolved? He just said something like, well, I think you all know what I would like, which is, he didn't then go on to say, he didn't voice it, but obviously he just wants it sorted out. And even in that, in our world where we're used to, not read tea leaves, but read between the lines a little bit. And he then repeated it towards the end of the season to do with budgets, I think. So, I hear different things about his sort of, his view of how it's been handled, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of in-depth research in terms of Ten Hag. You have got a book out as well, which the link is in the chat now, guys. It's been there all the way through. Do click on that. Jamie has done a full breakdown. It's got a great title. We're not allowed to say it right now because
all I'll say is it's called... It uses the quote Ten Hag used after you beat Liverpool in August.
Yes.
At your place here, because they can play something good football. He said when he was asked how you could manage to do that after losing Brentford and Brighton.
Yeah.
It's just an account of this season from sort of pre-season when we were both there, weren't we, in Bangkok.
What was your biggest? Just a quick super chat. Just got to read out from Hash. He said, "Does Vidic fancy a pina colada?" Vidic looked like the shirt. It was coming. Yes, he would like one of them. He would. But you've written the book.
Yes.
It's been released today. Is it?
Well, no. It's out on something called Substack, which is basically just a subscription website. I've got my own version of Substack. It's just Jamie Jackson. You put it into Google, and basically, I started releasing it just after the Carabao Cup final, which you won, obviously, in weekly chapters. The first one is free. And then, if you want to buy the whole book, it's $4.99 a month, and it's published in weekly chapters. Tomorrow, actually, is the final chapter. But as I say, if you go on there, you can sort of start with chapter 1, and it starts in pre-season. Actually, it starts when they hired him. Yeah, there's little bits of insight in there, stuff that's not reported, but it just tells a story. It's a bit sort of like a film, like a sort of cinematic sort of account of the season. And yeah, I mean, the club know about it actually, and I think people there have enjoyed reading it. I think it's a little bit different because it's written in poetry, but it's not actually rhyming poetry. It's just like blank verse. It's just like just like a film script really. So yeah, take a look.
Yeah, biggest moment of the season with Ten Hag for you?
Good question.
Like the one moment that stood out for you in his first season, something off the pitch, something on the pitch, an achievement, because there's a lot that's happened this season.
That is a very good question. You know what I'm going to say? Right? I'm going to actually say his very, very, very first press conference at the in the media, in the sort of post-game press room at Old Trafford. When he walked in, and he looked really nervous, right? Fair enough, he's allowed to be. He's a human being. It's Manchester United. And I thought, wow. And then he started talking, and his English wasn't as good as, or I thought it wasn't as good as what I'd been led to believe. Yeah. This is Ten Hag. And I thought, And why I'm picking that out? Because I was going completely wrong. Because he's really grown from there. So now we can control this. And actually, his English is very good. He's just very clever at what he says. So that for me was interesting because he walks in there, he sort of shakes everyone's hand who's sort of sat in the front row. And it was a big moment because it kind of, here we go, this is the start of it. And then you lose those 2 games after quite a good pre-season, really. I remember watching the training in Bangkok, seeing what he was doing. Some of the coaching, I think he was a bit exasperated. What if this lot had been coached before, under Solskjaer, basically, I think. He never said that.
I remember
but that very first press conference impressed me afterwards because I thought, God, I got that kind of wrong because he probably was a little bit nervous, but he was actually more in control. I thought it's just his style, and he's sort of brave enough or confident enough just to do it his way. Yeah, he doesn't have to be sort of like Mourinho or sort of full of bluster or whatever it is. He just goes in there and he sort of does his own thing and he commands it, and fair play.
That's it. It's fair play. I'd have said dealing with Ronaldo definitely was the biggest moment of the season for me. I was fully behind him. I was already behind him, but when he did that, I actually was the first manager, I think, since Alex Ferguson to put ego stature aside. Good call. I think that was, and everyone, I've had loads of criticism from it, but
there's another massive thing I had to deal with. We were at the friendly when he walked out of it at half time. Yeah, yes. Vallecano. Yeah. And then he does that. He does it in an actual Premier League game that you're winning against Spurs because he's asked to come on as a sub. Walks out. I mean, and Ten Hag had to deal with all that plus all the other stuff. So again, fair play to him.
That's it. I want to pick you up actually on. Obviously, you cover both City and United.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone watching this is happy to hear that.
That's it. Yeah, it's been a bad week. Let's just call it a bad week anyway. But you did make a lot of people laugh, and you did cause a bit of controversy with your combined.
Oh yes.
99-11.
Yes, You're not hiding to nothing doing that, by the way.
You are, mate. You are. You're going to get battered.
But I like that. I like it. I like a hiding to nothing.
Let's go through that because I'm sure everyone just join in with this in the comments as well. So we started at the back.
Yes.
It was obviously Ederson or
Schmeichel,
and it's a no-brainer. It's Peter Schmeichel. Yeah. And by the way, everybody, this is neutral. Jamie isn't a United fan.
Forest.
He's looking at this from a neutral angle as well, so this is fair all the way. Schmeichel in goal. Full-backs were?
Well, the choice was obviously Neville or Kyle Walker. In the piece I wrote coverage of this, I called Gary Neville his rudimentary talent, which kind of means quite basic, but I'll pick Walker.
Walker, I think a lot of people would probably agree with that one, actually.
Wow, that's interesting from United. Fair play to you.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Neville, like Keane says, he was very restricted. He was in a very, very good team.
Yeah. Listen, I love the fact that Gary Neville did what he did. Come on. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, just on this point. People always say, he was, not just Neville, whoever, not that talent, but very hard-working. I don't know if it's a controversial point of view, but I think being hard-working is a massive talent to have, to be able to have, because then that means that, definitely. Listen, it was difficult. It wasn't like, a little bit, but it's just Walker's pace, really. It's just phenomenal, that sort of, gets a lot of...
One thing we know Gary didn't have a lot of.
Yeah.
But full-back was a no-brainer. The other side, left-back had to be Dennis Irwin.
Yep.
100%. I don't think anyone in this chat would go any other than Dennis Irwin at left-back. Absolute rock for United.
Yeah, definitely.
Centre-backs was an interesting one.
Obviously you've got a toss-up between, the contenders, Stam, then Johnson or Berg for you from that sort of year, that season. And then, Stones or Diaz. I thought Stam was easy, walks in. I mean, you tell me, you'd probably know better, but he's got to be one of the best ever centre-backs, hasn't he, for United? He's up there, isn't he? Yeah?
He's up there,
so,
absolutely.
And then it was a choice of whether, for me, go for Diaz or Stones. And I just went for Diaz because I just think he's a bit of a warrior, leader. You could go for Stones and that sort of, he's a bit of a Ferdinand and sort of ball playing, obviously. But so I went for Diaz alongside Jaap Stam.
Pretty solid back four. Midfield's where it gets awkward, obviously.
Well, I didn't think so, actually.
If you look at Jamie Carragher's team, then you would think it's awkward because I don't know where he's come off with his, but...
Go on.
I think he didn't even recognise Ryan Giggs.
Right.
I think he squoze Beckham in there. Scholes and Keane didn't
So they didn't?
No.
listen, Roy Keane.
Yeah.
There's a player and a half there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you know, I am a Forest fan, and he was at Forest first.
Let's not forget, in all of this, mate, Keane and Scholes both missed that final.
Yeah, I know. Well, but when I wrote the accompanying piece to this team, I said that Keane was obviously the on-field personification of Sir Alex Ferguson, like Ferguson as a footballer. You know, Keane was. He was like, and so what I said was, you win that final, you almost play in the image of Keane, even though he wasn't there. You know, the Turin game. You know, he pulled that out of the bag for you. So even though he's not on the field, he's sort of demand to win, and he's just sort of like we're not, you know, we're going to beat whoever it is. We're still there because of it, and that's why he's a shooter. Paul Scholes, you know, you've only got to listen. I know this can be a little bit exaggerated, but you listen to other top players, not just United players, like Paul Scholes, and then married to what we've all seen, unbelievable football. I had David Beckham in. Again, that was easy. Beckham for me is underrated. He was a heck of a footballer. You know, he's like a central midfielder at right wing. Do you know what I mean? Yes, like, sort of like vision and passing and all that. And you've got Ryan Giggs, your sort of record appearance maker, ridiculous footballer. You know, unbelievable. As many league titles as Ferguson, you know, because he was there all the time. Yeah. And then the front, so yeah, and then Haaland was my striker. Now a lot of people have said York. Fair enough, that's an opinion, but I just think Erling Haaland is. How can you deny? Is it 36 Premier League goals in? So that's not a bad team. Now the one thing they didn't ask me to do was pick the manager, and maybe they should have done. You know, of this combined team. Well, I'd have gone Ferguson, by the way. That'd be my choice.
Good choice. Being here, that's a very good choice, definitely. But yeah, I don't think anyone. I think United's treble was definitely better. We had to do it in a shorter space of time. The teams we had to beat were the better teams as well, and we had. And it's like I said this the other day. It's like the players we were missing for that final. That's like taking De Bruyne and Rodri out of City's team.
100%.
City don't win that game without them too.
Definitely.
It's as simple as
the other thing about that season, you don't need me to tell you, the 98-99 was, you won loads of games, sort of hair and scare. You know, sort of, you know, you went behind to Liverpool in the FA Cup in the 4th or 5th round, I think it was. The semi-final, the Giggs goal, that game, you know, it was extra time on it. The final, right? And that's just you know, you had to be Spurs on the last day, and you'd go behind to Les Ferdinand goal.
Free trophies,
do you know what I mean?
A week,
it's just like, you know, when I did the Solskjaer biography, I obviously looked at all these sort of results. I was like, wow, you know, because you sort of half forget, you know, when years go by. But when you look back at it, so, you know, that United team, United generally, are always like, it's always entertaining. You know what I mean? Always entertaining players.
You would get in a game no matter what. It wasn't like let's say boring. Obviously, City have done well and everything like that. It pains me to say it, but towards the back end of the season, it got quite boring with City. It did. With United, it was just full on excitement. It was better to watch.
There's a thing the other day, I think it was Carragher sort of saying, what did Ferguson ever do to revamp football? So he's sort of saying Guardiola changed the face of the game. Well, here's my answer to that, right? Ferguson showed that it's possible to win 13 Premier League titles and be at a club like Manchester United for 26 and a half years. That's how he revamped the game, because that's a ridiculous achievement, right? And that's after he'd been at Aberdeen, who beat Real Madrid in a European, I think, Cup Winners' Cup final. You know, Aberdeen beat Real Madrid, you know, because of him. So that's what he did. That's what he did. He showed what's possible if you're that much of a genius, basically.
Yeah, that's it. It's another Jamie Carragher nightmare moment, I think, that one in that
Jamie Carragher, by the way, he's a very nice man. He's a friend of mine. No, he is.
I don't doubt it. He just comes out with some serious clickbait sometimes on social media. But, yeah, it's like talking about ex-Liverpool players and talking about Manchester City. Yeah, it's a difficult conversation. I know,
I get
all
that.
Of us to have.
It's easy for me, not so easy for you, I get that.
But, yeah, no, it is that. But, yeah, I mean, before we go, Jamie, looking ahead, pre-season is set now for United.
Yep.
What do we need going in to be competing with Manchester City? I need you.
Realistically, what do you actually need? I mean, what realistically are we going to get? Or?
Realistically, let's forget realistically, because we need to start closing that gap. So I'm going to give you a striker, a centre midfielder, and a centre back.
Right.
Pick.
All right. Harry
players.
Kane.
Harry Kane's a must.
Yeah.
Centre midfielder.
Declan Rice.
I was really intrigued to see what you were going to say to that, because he gets a bit of a bad rap on our channel, Declan Rice. I like him. I rated him, and I've had some
amazing
footballer, bigging him up.
Amazing footballer.
What is it that Declan Rice for you fits perfectly for United?
Right. So he's bit. Listen, he's not the same at all, but he would be the closer you would get to an all-action midfielder since Roy Keane, right? Box to box, can play defensive midfield, can play attacking.
Play centre back.
Yeah, exactly. Still very young, smart, winner, got a smile on his face, bring personality. Yeah, I'm not saying you don't have any. You've got quite a few personality, but you lack that for a little while at your club. But he would add something. He's not exactly the same as Jack Grealish. He's got that sort of twinkle in his eye, and I'm saying that's on top of him being a brilliant footballer. I think that he'd be amazing for your midfield. I just think so. So centre back, don't know, John Stones.
We're not allowed City players.
Oh, crumbs.
I mean, we've had Kim and Jay.
Who's the lad at Arsenal who was injured towards the end of the season? Him. You know, and it kind of cost him. What's his name?
Saliba.
Yes.
Saliba.
Yes.
You would try and push that contract situation.
But you said it didn't have to be realistic. Just whoever. You
that type of centre back then.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Who would you replace then?
Eh?
Would that be for Varane?
Well, he's always. Kind of, yeah, because he's always sort of injured.
No, honestly, mate, you've answered exactly the same way the United fans have. It's like we cannot rely on Varane.
But
if there's someone better
it doesn't
out there.
really matter who it's for. The point is you want 3 or 4 top centre backs in that position. Because there's 2, or you want 2 amazing central midfielders for one position, right? So they fight it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Calvin Phillips hadn't had a look in at City because of Rodri, but let's see what happens this summer.
Likes to drink now,
doesn't
he? I can't believe he was actually chanting and actually celebrating. But yeah, I mean, one thing with Declan Rice, it is right. He's never had a drink. He's still not touched the.
Is that correct?
Or something like that. And I remember it from
clean
the World
living.
Cup. Whereas Jack Grealish on the other. Well, let's not even go there. We all seen the scenes yesterday. But Jamie, that pretty much sums it up for us. We've done an hour. Cheers everybody for tuning in to the video. It's been an absolute pleasure having Jamie on. We'll do more.
Thank you very much, very kind.
Well.
Can't wait. Pina coladas, please.
Yeah, people are loving the shirt. People are loving the lookalikes. Jamie, cheers for coming on, mate.
Thank you.
Guys, we will keep you updated with everything back at 8 o'clock again tonight. Mark is back. Do tune in for that one, and then if anything does happen with the ownership and news breaks, we'll have it all there. Hit that bell notification next to the subscribe button so you get notified when everything comes up and all our latest videos are there. But like I said, like, share and subscribe to the United Stand. Cheers for watching, everybody. We'll see you later on.